Well, hello everyone. This is Shauna, and I'm coming to you this week with another installment of the Bob and Nikki series. We are now in our journeys in the series up to book 8. If you've been following along, this is Shaved Ape Key, and this book is one of those books that marks a shift in the storyline and in the overall sort of world building of Bob and Nikki. So we're still on Earth. There's still ties to Earth. There's still things to be done on Earth. We've got people in Shady Oaks. Remember, John had bought a hospital, I should say, to use their technical equipment, and he still has the hospital. He's still in name, he's still the owner of Shady Oaks, the nursing home that they bought out early on in book 3. And so this book kind of brings together all of their sort of locations. So they have their base on Earth, their shop where Topper would do all of the renovations to cars, Topper and the boys, and they would have their band and all of that. So they have their Earth base. They have Charlie's Planet, where Morning Flower and the Squatches, they had rescued a bunch of Squatches from the slavers, as we saw in book 4, and subsequent books after that, but primarily book 4 and 5. And then we have the planet of the carnivorous animals that we met in Captain Caveman, and he was there with that, and Lost in Transit. And so we have the people that he rescued from there. The problem there is that they can't find a place to put all those people, and that is still a problem, but that's kind of in the back of their minds. Right now, they've got Millie, they've got Janet from that planet. They've also got Millie's grandma. And then we have also in this location, what they decide to do is they find an island on the on Charlie's planet that they plan to buy from the Squatches, essentially, and they use it as a bug out place for the refugees from Shady Oaks. So what you see is Bob and the team gradually, not so much downsizing their operations as liquidating as much as they can, to on the basis that they're not going to be able to be back very much longer. There is a growing sense of unease. We haven't seen it yet, but it's definitely coming. The feud seems to be dying down. At the opening of this book, Bob has taken back a whole group of slavers to the patrol, and they find that they have Chinese markings. He sends them back. He gives Morning Flower and the other group their semblance of order with that. He gives them new fighters to be able to fight off the slavers on their own. Then we see also the bots growing up. We also see Bob administering unlocked codes to a lot of the cargo bots on Charlie's planet. And those cargo bots, once they get their memories back, not just the first unlock codes, but the flag level unlock codes, we find out that they're Marines. So now Bob has a whole squad of Marines that he's able to use, including Andre. And there's a couple of bots that are worth mentioning in here. There's the sneaky bots that Andre had wanted to get a hold of that they couldn't find, that was smaller than the rest of them. And they did find him in this book. His name is Gunny, but he that's like a nickname. And he gets his name changed to Abe. So we find Abe, and Abe becomes a pilot for Bob's personal crew, among other things. And we have another bot who comes along in another group of rescues. Bob basically cleans out all of the castaways from Earth that they can find in all of their travels. They found all of those human castaways. They needed a place to take them, and Bob takes them back to the patrol and takes them to the guards, and he gets them back. And so you see that, but there's a bot there, and his name, it becomes Pete, and Pete plays a very distinct role because Pete becomes a personal trainer for Greg Williams, who, as you might remember, is the young boy adopted by Jane Williams and John Branham in the previous installment of the book. And it turns out he's a rather sneaky young fellow. And so that's why Bob thinks that he would be good to train with him. And it's also punishment because at one point, Greg sneaks half of Bob's beer, gets himself incredibly sick on it, but filled up the missing beer with water. And before he takes it to Bob, Bob finds out that's what's going on, gets incredibly sick over it, reports to Pete, and takes up this physical training, which we'll see more of and we'll see dividends of in future installments as Pete's duties grow and as it becomes, as the focus shifts. But this book, this installment, marks a shift in the series. They're definitely making plans to leave Earth and to take on the exploratory part of their mission. So you're not going to see some of the homespun, comforting build instruments, build cars for people, just kind of hang out, relax, and find a role. There is a lot of that still happens, but the stakes become higher. Also, there's now a push, really. Bob has taken on the captaincy, but there's really a push now by the bots, being that a lot of them are former Navy, especially Sally, to train Bob to be a captain. And so there's not just the training, but there's also the Sims, and he does a fantastic job on the Sims. There's another subplot besides getting the Squatch squared away on Charlie's planet and setting up the sort of downsizing of the operation on Earth. There's the idea of having to bring Janet and Millie on board, and Janet is assaulted by her father, and we see how Bob handles sexual assault and how he deals swift justice with a trial, but swift justice. He basically executes Samus. So now Janet doesn't have any guardians. Bob and Nikki are taking care of her, but there's really no guardians, and that's going to be something that comes up in a future installment of this book. So we start to see some other relationships forming, and we start to see more movement coming to the ship. So you sense a lot of these dynamics. We also, at the end of the last third of this book, Bob, because they had the auto dock, if you remember from the end of the last installment, they had the auto dock full of this alien race that they had rescued, and they didn't know what to do with it. So they spend considerable time in this, in this book, talking about deciphering his language and getting to know. So now we have the squirrels. So at this point in our journey, we now have the humans, the squatches, and now the squirrels. We don't know much about the squirrels, but we've got 4 of them on board right now because Bob ends up taking his neighbor Joshua with him on the ship to help him. And Joshua turns out to be a squirrel. He was sort of the neighbor that nobody was suspicious of, but seemed a little bit odd from the beginning. And now we know why, because Joshua is a squirrel with a human face, and he had been physically altered by the auto dock and come to the earth to sell black walnuts, which is what the squirrels want. And as we go into book 9, the secret squirrels, we're going to find out more about the squirrel race. Bob now has, as I said, 4 squirrels on board, and what he thinks is a temporary move, and we'll see more true expansion as we continue with that. But I think the greatest strengths of this book are really showing the ties of personal responsibility and what it means to take care of each other, because we see that with Bob and Nikki toward Janet. We see that with Janet toward Millie. We see that with Jane Branham and Joanna Michaels in their solicitation of the other crewmates. And we continue to see that in Bob's counsel with the bots, as Frank Johnson, I should say, has the minder, Julie the bot. He manages to make her more suggestible and essentially escape from that, and the other bots take care of it so that he won't be able to do that again. You see a lot of cohesion and people taking care of other people, even as the stakes are increasing. And so that really is a strength of these books, even as the stakes increase, that people want to take care of others and they want to do right by them. So I'm going to leave that summary here, leave that reaction here. And Lord willing, I'm going to see you again next week when we talk about installment number 9, where we're getting to the secret squirrels. Until then, take care, everyone. Be safe. And if you're following along, I hope you're enjoying the books, and I hope you're enjoying this bit of commentary as we go. Take care, and I'll speak to you in my next video. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.